I'm life and confidence coach Dianna Leeder, and this is my podcast, the Crave More Life Roadshow. It's here we talk about emotional hits and lovingly kicking our own asses to get through them. Just so you know, it always comes down to being your beautiful, sassy self, living and loving from you, no matter what. So join me to hear about the healing journeys of other women, and you just might become a DIY ass kicker too. Hey, DIY ass kickers! This is the Crave More Life Roadshow podcast with guest Melinda Van Fleet. Melinda Van Fleet is a multi-passionate success coach, speaker, writer, and business consultant who helps individuals as well as teams develop confidence to believe in themselves, take action, and get results. Melinda believes many women are stuck and not living their best lives, and they can. Utilizing her over 25 years of experience building businesses and her passion for working with people, Melinda teaches women real-life tools they can use to improve their confidence, their relationships, increase productivity, and approach each day with a sense of purpose. Prior to launching her speaking, coaching, and consulting business, Melinda rose to the top of her industry as a successful senior buyer in the corporate world, as well as a top performing sales rep. She accomplished this while helping her husband launch his extremely successful business, Good Karma Sport Fishing. Now she helps others achieve their goals and dreams too. Melinda regularly speaks to groups of corporate professionals as well as women's groups and is the host of two podcasts, The Good Karma Success Coach and Confident Conversation. Melinda's new book, Confidence Mastery for Couples, Roadmap to a More Intimate Relationship, is coming out on March the 9th. So let's get talking to Melinda. So thanks so much for being here. I'm really happy that you are, and I'm really eager to talk to you about your book, and that's coming out the 9th of March.
Yes, which will be here any second. I'm like kind of freaked out.
Yeah. Oh, so exciting. Awesome. So as you know, the podcast is about emotional hits and how you have gotten through them. And I want to connect those to the book because I know that there's a story. There has to be a story. There has to be a connection. So I'm going to give you the mic, and so to speak, and let you tell us about that.
Yeah, sure. And the story that I'm going to share is actually one that's not in the book. So I'm going to share it because I really hope it helps a lot of other women out there and people in general, because, anyone can have this type of situation happen to them. And I have to give a little bit of a background just to kind of set the story up, because not everyone knows who I am and my husband and I's story about moving down to the Keys. So just to kind of set a little framework, my husband and I both lost our jobs at the same time in 2009. And we had only been married a short time, just a few years. So we were still in that place of getting to know each other. And there was a lot of work that had to be done. And that's really what the crux of the book is about. And we lost our jobs and we decided to move to the Florida Keys. We had manifested moving somewhere where it never ever snowed. And my husband could become a sport fishing captain. That was his dream. That was his vision. And at the time I wanted to be a sales rep and be paid per performance. So we ended up moving down to the Keys from Minneapolis. And we moved here. We didn't know anyone. We didn't have any jobs. We had hardly any money, and we never even been here. So we moved down here with nothing and just started over. And it took a few years. In the time frame of those 2 years, like I said, my husband had dreams of being a captain. And I am someone who's a giver. I think I inherited it from my father. I'm a giver. My one of my soul paths, like truly after having a soul reading, is generosity. And I give. And in my relationship with my husband, I was constantly giving. So flash forward then, during those couple years of being down here, we first got down here, we used some money that we had, this little bit of money, to buy a used boat from some snowbirds that were down here. We didn't know anything about boating in the Keys, nothing. And we bought this little center console boat that was about 21 foot. And Ryan was so excited. And I was too. I was excited for him. And one of the things about becoming a charter boat captain is you have to get hours. You can't just like start fishing and being a captain. Like it takes hours. You have to actually accumulate fishing hours and have it all documented and signed off. So part of all of that was having this boat. And so he could get the hours and start to really learn the Florida Keys waters. Well, in August of 2011, the boat died. It just died a painful death.
Oh.
We had been filtering every little penny we could into fixing the engine, getting the lower unit fixed. And if you know anything about boats, you know it can either be your best friend or your worst nightmare. And for us, it was a worst nightmare. And like I said, finally in August of 2011, so we had been here just about 2 years, I finally had to say to my husband, the boat's just done. The boat is gone. There's nothing more we can do about the boat. I have been through my brother dying, my brother-in-law dying, getting fired, a toxic relationship that was completely insane. There was nothing more traumatic than telling your husband, who you love, who you have given so much hope and faith in building his career and building a dream and moving to the Keys with nothing. And still 2 years later, you have no money. And there's nothing more painful than basically having that feeling and that fear that all your hopes and dreams have gone down the shitter. And when that boat died and he looked at me and was like, I feel like I just lost my best friend. There, like my heart, like just became the heaviest heart ever. And it made me really understand what it's like, you know, to be a parent and have that emotional attachment to your child, and something happens with your child, or, you know, any other family. I have the chills just thinking about this and remembering this. Any other, you know, situation or anything in your life that, you know, especially when you're such a giver and you give so generously and you don't really think about yourself, but all your hopes and dreams have become wrapped up in someone else, how that just really can crush your spirit. And it was crushing. And like I said, like I had been through so many other tragic things prior to this, but there was nothing like this, because for the 2 years prior to that boat dying, we were just, you know, oh yeah, we're going to make it. Everything's going to be great. Everything's going to be awesome. And it was just like someone pulled the, you know, electricity out of the wall for us. And we couldn't believe it. And the months of September and October were truly black for me. We're black. I was like, how am I going to get through this? How am I going to lift him up? He already was someone who suffered from depression, which was part of our story in moving to the Keys. How am I going to figure this mess out? How am I going to figure it out? And it was really, really dark because I put all of myself into someone else, and really was just taken by the desire to really make this all a go. And it wasn't happening. It was just like, what do I do now? Now we have really no money and no boat. And now my husband's even more depressed with no hope, no glimmer of hope that we can freaking figure this out. So it was really rough. It was rough because I do think as people, as women, we are all givers. We all are generous, and we do so many things for other people. So then when the world like comes crashing down, you just feel so helpless. And that was it. I felt helpless. I was like, there is no, like, how do I get out of this hole? Like, we've moved down here. We've pinned all our hopes and dreams on all this stuff. And now I'm like looking at like a blank wall going, okay, now what do we do next?
Yeah.
So it was really rough. We ended up finding a boat that we had no money for, but and I'll write about this someday in another book, because otherwise I could take up many podcasts. But and honestly, through my understanding faith, and that we all have, angels and teams helping us, it was a lot of prayer. It was a lot of prayer. And then finally one day, like, it kind of all started to come together. And I looked at my husband finally in November. Well, he took the classes early November, so it must have been late October, and said, you know what, you're still going to go to captain's class, because captain's class was the beginning of November, and he had his hours by then. And I said, we'll figure out the boat. The boat will figure itself out. I've put it out there to the universe, and the boat will figure itself out. But in the meantime, you're still going to take that action, and you're still going to freaking go to the captain's class and get your license, and we'll figure the boat out, because the boat's a thing, right?
Yeah.
And so he ended up going to captain's class, which is a whole other thing, but he ended up going to captain's class and getting his captain's license. And then by the miracle of all these other parts coming into play, we were able to buy our boat, which is called the Good Karma. And for all those reasons, right? It all like came together. And we're able to start our business then January 1st of 2012. But that dark time of those 2 months of me just really, it was like I took on as a person that the ownership of everything was like on my shoulders. So, when I read stories of women that work 3 jobs and they're single and they have 5 kids, like, I can understand, it was just me and my husband, but I can understand from like an empathy, like how that feels every day, that these other people are depending on you and you're trying to figure it out. You're trying to make it work. And that stress is just it's a huge, I hate to say cross to bear, but it's just kind of what came to my mind. It's like this thing that's just palpable. So, yeah.
Well, and when you use those terms, I can just envision, carrying of, of weight. And that's really what it is. And I want to point out too, for the listeners, because I've had the privilege of reading some of your chapters. Thank you very much. And I want to really emphasize that, your move to the Keys was a huge deal. It wasn't just, oh, let's just do this. You guys are very intentional about what you wanted to do and how you were going to do it. So to have a big piece of it pulled out from underneath you, would actually trigger, as a woman and as part of that partnership, trigger your need or desire to fix it. Right, that's kind of what we do as women. So yeah, I can imagine that it was a huge hit.
Yeah, it is. And it's funny you said the word fixer, because you're absolutely right. When I was a corporate buyer, I was always put in these roles in different areas in a retail organization that were always a disaster, right? And I always fixed them. That was always my thing. I am a fixer. You said the right word. I'm a fixer. So I was working on fixing him. I was working on fixing the situation. And when everything just went, it was like, what do you do now? Like, how do you fix this? So so I relied on spirit to pull us through, and day by day, just kind of tried my hardest to keep my hopes up and my beliefs, and keep positive, and just keep on going, and keep taking action. So
yeah, love that. And I think so it's important to say too that it sometimes because we are fixers, women are fixers, you know.
Mhm.
I don't think there's anybody that can say that they're not.
Right.
It's whether or not they make it to their detriment is the issue, right? Or whether they do it out of, you know, full intention. But I do wonder if, you know, being that fixer and, you know, having that one piece removed from your ability to fix it really put you, and I'm just, you know, use you as the example here, but really did put you in a position where you had to let go of some of that and just, you know, put it out, as you said, put it out to spirit, put it out to the universe, and see what would happen. You know, we don't, I think as when we're traveling on a path, that path isn't straight. You know, but it doesn't mean that we have to abandon our goals. We just have to go a little in a little different direction to get them, you know. So
Mhm.
which is sounds exactly like what you did.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're right. And there is this hand, you know, what is the Carrie Underwood song, Jesus Take the Wheel? Like, I mean, there
Oh.
is like there is a piece of that is just so true. Like you can only do so much and you sometimes have to, you know, take a break. And I feel like I've had this happen so many times in my life where I'm like,
Mm.
you know, even with us moving here, like there was a point where I remember my mom saying, stop pushing. Because I was pushing and pushing and pushing to find a job, like a job, where they moved us to Florida. That was part of it. And nothing was happening. And so we ended up going on vacation. And like, I was like, we got to just go on vacation and just take a break and let this energy just settle and regroup and pray to the ocean gods. Like, you know, what should we do? And it just came back like, just freaking move. So we did.
There you go.
But yeah, there's all these, you know, and I think everyone probably has those moments, but they don't realize them or recognize them. You know what I mean? Where they're like, gosh, that was really tough time. And I did have to take my hands off the wheel a little bit and just trust and still take small actions, not be a goofball and sit and watch Netflix all day. But
Yeah,
you know,
that doesn't always work.
that doesn't really work. That sounds great, but
It does sound great, yeah.
but you know, still like start to work in conjunction with, yes, I'm taking some action, but I'm also letting go a little bit. So
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I want to jump into your book. I see it right behind you.
yes,
It's so pretty.
with my faux cover, I'm really authentic. I tell everyone it's the faux cover. So
You
then I
didn't
can give
even,
other authors ideas too, like, oh, she just made a faux cover. It looked like her book.
you really didn't even need to give that up.
That's okay. I'm
We don't
fine
know.
with
We don't
sharing.
know.
I'm a good sharer. Yeah.
So the book is all about couples mastering confidence with one another. So here's my question. Why do we not have confidence in our relationships as women?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's just one of those things that as we work on ourselves and we get better with ourselves, then we can, I want to say like share the love, you know, but you become then like less, well, one of the chapters, for example, is change. So, you know, often couples try to change each other, right? But you have to work on yourself first and you build that confidence in yourself. And then you can spread the love. Like you can, by your right actions or by your sharing or learning to be a better communicator, then, you know, eventually you will end up working together, gaining confidence and changing together. So that's really where my general, you know, idea and intention around the book is recognizing that I couldn't just change my husband. I had to do a lot of internal work first and change myself. And then together, we ended up working on things and changing as a team and then growing our confidence as a couple. Because you know, the more things that you have happened to you, the more experiences, the older you get, you know, all those things, all those life experiences help, you know, build your confidence.
Mhm.
So, so that was just one piece of it is that there is a whole chapter on change. And I think that's something that people struggle with, is they try to change the other person. And I was the perfect poster child for that. I tried to do that, and that's just not how it works. So
no, you're right. It doesn't work like that. But it's something that is very prevalent. You know, a lot of women think that that's their job. You know, I often think about the joke about the honey-do list. You know, you've heard that, right? So it's do my husband and I have, do I suggest that he do things? Does he suggest that I do things? Yeah, for sure. But it's not in a way that is me directing him and demanding that he needs to do those things. So, and over the years, of course, and as you would refer to, as we get older, a lot of what we do becomes kind of set in stone. So it's, even the gender differences in terms of who does what work and that kind of thing they do get set in stone. But I seriously have met so many women who, it's almost ownership is the word that's coming into my mind, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but it's like, that's my job. I have to make sure that he's doing what he needs to do. And there's also that piece about that he is okay. It's not just a punitive thing. It is, we want our husbands to be okay, to be healthy, to be happy.
Yeah, that's so true. And I had another thought too that just escaped me. Oh, and one thing I really want to make sure comes through in the book, that is, I'm not saying we're perfect. So we still work on these things every day. And that's what I really want everyone to understand. So they give themselves grace, and they use these stories that I share, because I share lots of little stories, as just relatable examples. So they know they're not alone, and they might pick up a nugget or two and go, okay, yeah, that sounds like something I have to deal with in my household, and I'm not alone. And, you keep working on these things, right? Because as you said about getting older, the other thing is, yes, as you get older, you get wiser, but then you also get more set in your ways. So it is the two sides to the coin there, because you might be like, well, I've been doing this for, I've been leaving my cup of coffee here, for the past 20 years. And now your wife or your spouse, either way you look at it, doesn't like it. So all these little things, sometimes add up and can become explosive even.
Yes.
If you think about it, for a lot of couples or people even. And, my whole vibe with this is, just work on these little things as you go through your day, and just really be recognizing them, and then, trying to work through them as you go. But no, you're not alone. And, Rome wasn't built in a day. So it takes time.
Yeah, it does. But I appreciate what you're saying, about just do something every day. And if that begins with you, then that's the best place to start. Yeah. And there's so many pieces of what I read in your book that I resonated with. It was really it's a good book. You guys, you got to get it. It's very, very, there are all kinds of tools and tips. Yeah, it's awesome. So the one chapter that you have on intentions. So why are intentions so important to us as women and to our relationships?
Yeah. Because if you don't realize where it stems from and why you're asking it, then, it can be anything from, just void energy, like, okay, that was like stupid and not even worth my time. Or it can be something that's just really important to you. And, once you realize what's important to you and why it's important to you. So, there's so many examples, but let's say, for example, what the story I just told about, the boat dying. Well, why it was so upsetting was because we had visions of building this business and this dream, right? So, breaking through that, someone from the outside might just be like, well, it's just a boat, and they don't get it, right? Mm-hmm. But for us, it was a dream. I mean, my husband fishes because it helps with his mind and his depression and his mindset. I mean, there's a reason why. So then there's a reason why for me, it was important that this operation could happen, because obviously I want him to be successful and us to be successful, but just to be healthy and feel good. And it feels good for many people out there, which is one of the reasons why I believe his community is blown up, is because people, have hobbies, whether it's fishing or hiking or running or swimming, because it helps you, it helps your brain, it helps your whole body, your soul, to have things like this. And so that was, the intention, that was the why. Like, why did I need to figure this boat situation out? Obviously to help him. And then, so obviously I have a lot of intentions in this one.
That's okay.
But also too, like when you're, and this is something we talk about a lot, is, when your partner's happy, then you're happy, right? So it does become like a full circle. If he's happy and doing what he loves and enjoys, then I'm going to be happy, because I don't have to freaking worry about him anymore. So there's a lot packed in your question.
Sure.
But I think when people start to realize why they may have these certain feelings or wish to take certain actions, whether it's in regards to a relationship or a business, then they start to get the clarity that they need to move forward and do those things.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think too, when a couple is talking about doing something that's going to take a lot of their time. So, we all have separate dreams. My husband and I definitely do. We actually met in the same industry, but kind of took it in different directions. Each of us did, but we have that common thing between us. So we can sit down and we can discuss our various pieces of work and the ups and downs, and and we can support each other on that level. But what you guys had to do was to sit and to do something, plan something that was big and, monumentous really for both of you, because I know you have a big part of his business. At least I think that's what I read.
Yes. But I'm finally taking ownership of, so which is part of the story. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. And in that case, you have to be on the same page. Absolutely. Yeah. How could you not? Yeah. It's like, don't put your, Melinda, don't put your coffee cup on the top of my boat. No, it's my boat too, and I want it there.
Yeah. There's that, partnership negotiation piece of it. One of the other chapters is teamwork, support, and then teamwork and support. So there's, a lot in that. And, part of the audience that I hope to reach is some people that maybe are thinking of working together with their partner or spouse, because I think, number one, there can be some growing pains with that. Number two, some people might think it's really easy, or some people might think it's really hard and it's not possible, so there's different elements that people may have, their own thoughts around. And hopefully, I can just share some light and some stories in relation to that, and some tips and tools too. So
well, having those experiences, then as you say, it's kind of a work in progress. We are works in progress, but having those experiences, I think, are really important to share with other people. Yeah, absolutely. So the next chapter that I really liked was the reframing and triggers. That was very interesting. And one of the quotes you had in there was, transformation lies in reframing. So tell us a bit about that.
Yeah. Gosh, I personally love talking about triggers, because I think if you can understand your triggers and work through them, like, oh my gosh, your world can change, which then builds your confidence. So I do talk a lot about triggers, especially recently, because I think that that's been a huge part of our learning, especially with my husband. There's a lot of things. Well, me too. I'm gonna say equal, because when you work with the public, when you work with people, people are people, and things that people say can really trigger you. and and the more you start to break that down, like, why did that person trigger me? What happened? Then you can start to really crush through some of those beliefs and mindsets, and then your energy, right? And when you get that all, flowing, you can be in a better place. And, I need to start taking track, like, how many times a day is an average person like triggered,
That'll be
So,
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think it's really, really common, and not something that everyone fully has an understanding about. I do believe there's, coaches understand that. Obviously, I'm sure you do. Probably a good amount of your audience, but like a normal everyday person probably doesn't. So taking like the triggers, really understanding where, like, why are you triggered, what's going on there, and then trying to reframe it. That's just kind of the next step. That's really the elevating it, whether you can reframe it and make it not about you, maybe it's about them, and taking the energy out. I'll give an example that's not in the book. It's actually something I was going to talk about on a Facebook Live, and because it's something that just happened, is Ryan's dad. He's not here, so he can't kill me for telling the story. But I like to share authentic stories, and we all have these issues with our families. And so my husband's dad was on my husband's Facebook Live. My husband did a Facebook Live for his private community, and it was a Sunday night. And it's been extremely stressful in our world since August because of the weather. So the weather in the Florida Keys has been a complete nightmare, and just wind. So my husband gets booked every day, but he loses a lot of charters because of the wind. And that's money. That's marketing, that's rescheduling people, that's people being annoyed. And it can take a toll on you. So my husband had a Facebook Live on Sunday night with his community, and his dad was on the Facebook Live. And we didn't know that. He didn't make himself known. The next day, his dad said to him, "Oh, you look old and tired on your Facebook Live." Oh, and I was like, what? Like, who says that, right? I mean, these are supposed to be your parents that like love and support you, but it just goes to show you that, how the world is. And we had to work through that trigger, because, that doesn't feel good to get that feedback, instead of like, "Oh, son, I'm so proud of you." I mean, that is not what came out of his mouth. It came out, "You look old and tired." And, we had to just really take a step back and be like, we don't want to be his parents. His parents are retired. They sit and watch CNN all day. And we don't want to be that. So, maybe some days we might look a little tired because we're running our own business. And, my husband gives that Facebook Live for free, sharing tips with his community. So out of a generous place that he did that. And, sometimes he just might look a little tired, so we had to really shift and take out the trigger, take the energy out from that, and reframe and be like, you know what? Maybe some days we're a little tired, and that's okay. We don't want to be you when we're 72 years old. So just reframing and thinking through those things. I saw this meme the other day that was really great, that said, "Don't take $100,000 advice from someone who makes $40,000." And it's just true. So as maybe shallow as that may seem, it's just true. Like, think about who's giving you that feedback, and reframe it and just be like, you know what, we're okay. We're okay. I might've been a little tired. Maybe my hair is getting more gray because I'm getting older. I'm almost 50. Who knows, right? But he has white hair. So, right. So who is he to judge? He has white hair. That's what I'm saying. So you have to reframe it in your mind to move through it and know that it's not about you. It might be about them. It could be someone making a judgment like that could be like, gosh, I wish when I was 48 years old, that's how old my husband is, I was moving and grooving and creating my own business and doing what I love, living in the Florida Keys, right? So that reframing, that taking a step back to take the energy out of what someone else was saying about you and their judgment can really help you move through situations. But you have to remember to do it. You have to remember to do it. And that's where we helped each other. So
yeah, awesome. Yeah, that's a really important place to go, to be able to support each other like that. Yeah. And because I can't imagine, I mean, we have expectations, whether we know them or not. We have expectations of how we would like people to treat us, and especially when it comes to family and within our partnerships as well. If we have expectations that are not being met, that's something to reframe too, not to necessarily accept what you're getting, I don't think, but to know that it's not about you. And you have to have heard this before, but that line, I think every coach knows it now, is probably in every coach training, that what other people think about us is really none of our business, right?
Yes.
And that's true, right? Yeah, it's true. But to be able to support each other, I think that's the piece that I like the most out of that. You both were probably triggered in different ways.
I was pissed.
Yeah. I was
no
doubt.
I'm blocking your dad from the group. So yeah, I was not happy. Because I know how hard he works, right? And was like, who is he to say that? Like, that's just mean.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there's a lot there, and there's a lot that you end up, having and feeding off of each other as a couple. Like, I had to take a step back too, and be like, okay, settle down, breathe. Let's realize where this is coming from. Let's reframe the situation. See yourself as the other person. That's one of my favorite sayings. Yeah. And just, kind of take a deep breath, or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, and, move through it. So, and we all have those. I mean, everyone struggles with all of that, especially online. I mean, this is a perfect, social media example, and sometimes it's just about the lighting.
It's true, isn't it? That thanks COVID, although, we were online before, but not to this degree, I don't think. So you're right. People can be really hurtful online because they can hide. It's kind of sad. Yeah. Although I have to say too, from my experience, that a lot of people are reaching out with more love now as well too. So I'm very, very happy about that. Yeah.
And I'm all about block and bless. So if someone is nasty in my feed, or I see something, people just get rid of them. Block and bless. So
block and bless. Yeah, I love that one. Yeah, block and bless.
I didn't make it up.
I like it. So the other piece that I just want to point out about that conversation is that one of the terms that you used was in the book was about lovingly. This is I threw that one in there. I know that's what you intended. I believe calling each other out. So reminding our partners, which is a big one, and I know it is for my husband and I, reminding our partners about why we are so pissed, or why we are so upset about a comment, or to just help them give them that opportunity. So what's that all about? That's my favorite. What's going on there? Let's have it. Bring it out. Let's do it.
And that takes, I'm sure this, that takes a lot of work. I mean, that takes, conversation. And, there was one story I share in there that, ended up being like layers of, I thought we were on this page, and then it ended up being on this page. So just, the more you can help each other with the communication, which all builds confidence. So it keeps going into this bucket of building your confidence. As you get better at doing these things, then the stronger you'll be. But yeah, you have to kind of call somebody out and try to, get them to talk, open up. I mean, there's so many times where I'm like, what's going on? It's his desk is right here. So I'm like, what's going on? Like, why are you quiet? It can be anything, right? Like, why are you quiet? Like, why are you grumbling? Just trying to like get that communication going is really important. And I just feel that, from my experience of, all around, whether it's like working with someone or friends, family, whatever, often that level of communication just doesn't exist. People kind of walk away and shrug their shoulders.
Absolutely.
Move forward. And, that really that's not the most helpful approach. So
no, I agree, because that it doesn't leave us.
Yeah.
And I think there's something here too about giving each other space to experience whatever we're experiencing too, because it's difficult, I think, for women. We talked about this in the beginning. If we are fixers, if our partner is sad or upset or whatever it is, we want them to feel better. That's really our goal. We really want them to feel better. But sometimes we can't, and we shouldn't try so hard to do that. So I know that's been very important for us, just either to hear or to say, like, I just need to work through this. That's all I need. In fact, I think you said something about that in your book relative to talking to a boss and your boss always trying to fix. To be able to offer that space and to ask for that space too. To just be able to process your emotion. And then when that emotion is processed, then you go back and the conversations are that much richer.
Yeah, it's so true. We had that actually yesterday morning. He was kind of in a funk. The weather's just been terrible. And I had this raging anxiety. It was very bizarre. And he just left, went outside, sat in the hot tub for like 2 hours. And then he came back and he was like, I feel better. And then I had a conversation with a friend who wants to help me on my book launch, which was super sweet, came out of nowhere, really, really kind and generous that she reached out to me. And that just shifted my anxiety. It was like this, weird thing, but sometimes, you do have to be able to like kind of say, hey, I just need some moments to get through this. I'm in a little funk, however you want to put it. And then, look for something that can maybe help you shift it. He knew to go sit in the hot tub. I was pleasantly surprised by the phone call, right? So that shifted that out of like nowhere, but it was great. It was fantastic. So different little things can actually help you.
And knowing, yes, for sure, and knowing what they are, I find, in advance, so that, because we're going to get them, we're going to get the hits, we're going to get the smackdowns, and to have a plan going in and knowing that, as Ryan did, that hot tub's going to make me feel way better.
Yeah.
We may come and visit you, actually, because that's one of my husbands too.
Oh, I would love if you came to visit. That would be so fantastic.
We'll come visit.
Yes, awesome.
After COVID.
Yes, I know. You guys definitely up in Canada. I just feel so bad because you guys are really like kind of locked in, and some people are really locked in. So
Well, depending on the severity. Some communities are extremely locked down. And we can go to the grocery store, obviously, we can do things like that. The original lockdown was major, way back in 2020. So, I think everybody is managing, but and we're used to being outside in cold, right? So a lot of people get out and do their thing, which is so helpful.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you too about any other tips that you have for listeners.
In the end of the book, so what I tried to do was, in the beginning of each chapter, almost all of them start with a quote and then some self-reflecting questions. So questions to ask yourself, to ask your partner, and to hopefully start the process. So start the process of your own thoughts and start like some type of dialogue. What I've noticed over the years is, a lot of couples end up having really nothing to talk about, right? Did you walk the dog? Did you take the kid to soccer? So my hope too is that this book starts to really just spur some dialogue as a couple. So that's a tip, let's say, just kind of in a different format. And then the chapters have like tips and nuggets throughout. And then at the end of the book is truly 7 tips and tools that I've put together, and 7's my lucky number. So I did 7.
Yeah, mine too.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. So what, one of the things that I loved sharing that I got permission from is a breathing tool from Isumusu, and that is Dr. June and Dr. Isabel. And I love building relationships and collaborating. And Dr. June was a fellow author with me on a collaborative book series this past fall. So I've gotten to know him and his business partner, Dr. Isabel, and they're both lovely. And they had done a 3-part webinar series on Journey to Your Quantum Nature. And they had put together a breathing tool, which is, taking deep breaths, making sure you're breathing from your belly, and, pushing your stomach out when you take a breath in and in. And a lot of people don't consciously do that. They might breathe and they might be breathing, I hate to say this, the wrong way, but there's a little bit of dynamics involved in that. And then their tool is, using their your hand and, running your finger up and down your hand and, saying positive things going up and then letting go of the negative things going down. So that conscious tool in regards to not only breathing, which is amazing and fantastic. And if you're not someone who's consciously breathing and, doing the breath work, I highly recommend that as step 1. And then if you are someone that is at that level, which is fantastic, then, maybe try to do that extra tip of, using your hand and your index finger to go up and down and breathe in something positive, some positive affirmation, and then breathe out like some negative energy that you just want to release. So it's just a really awesome little tool that they gave me permission to share in the book. So I thought I'd share it too here.
Nice. I that's awesome. I love breath work. I think it's so important for us because I don't think that we do breathe very well. I think that we shallow breathe a lot. And we don't, I think, and I, when I first started to learn about it, I was definitely guilty of this. Women suck in their gut, right? So they don't have a belly. Yeah. So you can't breathe properly when you're sucking in your gut the whole time, So, at some point you just have to let it go and allow yourself to breathe. Yeah. And I cannot tell you the number of times that, that just having that chance to stop and give yourself the opportunity to breathe deeply, how that has helped shift my either, if I'm feeling anxious or angry, any kind of, extreme feeling, it will definitely calm me. Absolutely. So great. That's an awesome tool.
Yeah. I have to share this funny story because I ended up hearing it repeated. So I have the story, and then like 2 years later, I ended up hearing someone say kind of the same thing on a podcast. So I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not the only person that thought this. But before I realized the power of breathing, I had a sales manager who would, every time I would say, every time I'd be kind of wound up about something, she would say, breathe, just breathe, breathe, just breathe. And I was like, oh my God, she is so condescending. That is so rude. Why does she keep telling me to breathe? And it was annoying. It was a trigger. I was like, oh God, stop. And then I don't know, shortly thereafter, who knows how I ended up stumbling on the path, but I started stumbling on the path that actually, yes, breathing is a really good tool and really helps. And then I obviously connected the dots to where she was coming from. but realized that she probably could have told me in a more educational, helpful way.
Well, because that is a kind of an old school condescending, just breathe. You'll be fine. Just breathe.
Yes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyone out there that's doing that, maybe they're not realizing they're doing that. And yeah, just take a moment and think about your presentation before to kind of go, it'll really help you, I promise.
Breathing will help. Breathing will help. Yeah.
Do it together. So
yeah, absolutely. Awesome. So I wanted to just jump back just a sec because I forgot a couple of things that I really wanted to ask you about that I'd read in your book. And the one thing that I was really, really keen on was when you have conversations about triggering, to be able to express to your partner what triggers you about them, but also to allow them to tell you what triggers them about you. Did I get that right?
Yes. You did, at least for me. Yeah, that's
big one.
And that's huge. And that takes a lot of confidence to get there, right? Because they might say something that's just like, wow, you are opening yourself up to possibly being hurt feelings or, crushed. So that's a big one. It is a big one. And if you can get there where you can have a conversation that, really is honest, it's an honest, authentic, transparent conversation to understand, when, let me think of an example. Well, my book opens with the story of, my husband telling me my tone was, not, not good. So that's like huge, right? When, someone tells you, how you speak to me is just, wrong. I mean, obviously that's an open, sharing a trigger, so obviously my tone triggered him, right? So then he had to share back, he had to share that with me to make it stop. So I think that sometimes, the words come out of our mouth, in, not maybe the best way. I think that's really common. But at the heart of that is what's going on, right? So if you figure out how to have those conversations and recognize what is the trigger in each other, to work through that. And, for me, it was becoming a better person. Like I wanted to fix that. I wanted to become a better person. It obviously was a root cause of so many struggles in my life. And he was the first person to say it. You have to buy the book to find the story.
Yeah, there you go.
But yeah, if you can get to a place where you can have those conversations and not, have it lead to an argument or lead to, severe crushed feelings that you can't move through, yes, it might crush you, but you have to then move through it, obviously, to work on yourself and get better and work on, each other as a team, get closer as a team. But yeah, that's a really big deal, I think, really important. So thanks for asking about that.
Yeah, I think it's a big deal too. And I think it's one that when you have that conversation, you have to leave your ego at the door.
Yes.
You have to tell it just to sit out and just accept what you're being told and sit with it. Because it could be something. I mean, obviously when we're triggered, this is my belief, when we are triggered, it's more than just, I didn't like that you leave your cup there. There's more to it. So it's an opportunity for us to, when we are triggered, I think, to be able to, it's an opportunity for us to think about that and to have that, to start to create some awareness around why that's such a big deal for me, and maybe it's because my mother never let me put my water glass on the table. I don't know. It could be something that simple. But then to know too, when your partner tells you something like that, if I say to my husband, don't put your water glass on the table, use a coaster. How many times have I tell you to use a coaster? I would never say that, but
People do. People do.
Well, they do. Yeah. Yeah. I think I know better. We've been together for like 40 years. So yeah. Anyway, to say something, to express what triggers us about someone else, I think is not always a place for us to take responsibility for, or hand responsibility for that trigger over to them. So, if I am upset because he hasn't put his cup away, then that's my thing, right? So,
Right.
so it's my chance to figure it out, and his chance to know, and he may say, which he does often, because we do have these conversations, well, if it bothers you, that's no big deal. I don't mind, not putting it there. So if we do that, and that comes back to the intention setting in my mind, if we do that, then I don't know, it just leaves us, it's so much room for each of us to grow on either side, but to be able to start with that conversation, which which you suggest so strongly in the book, which I thought was really great.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, okay, so I have one last question for you,
Sure.
and that is, I want you to share with the listeners something funny or quirky about you that you don't normally share.
That I don't normally share.
You can repeat something because
Yeah,
I think
I
you
would
probably are a
say
big sharer, right?
I know I'm kind of a big sharer, and where my heart went right away was actually something So then I'm like, well, you kind of already know this, but really people don't know this, because I think I kind of said this to you when we first met a couple weeks ago, was that I go for walks really early in the morning now at 5 a.m. so I can talk out loud to the universe, to the stars. And sometimes I sing, and at 5 a.m. no one's around. So I believe strongly in speaking it out loud. Like I just do. Like I believe if you're if you want to manifest, if you want to have, work on things, ask for help, which I ask for help all the time. I just believe in speaking it out loud. So I started doing it actually when the sun was up, because luckily in the Keys there's not that many people. So my advice is that most people have their headbuds in, right? So you can be walking down the street and have a conversation with your team, and people probably think you're talking to the phone. So just have at it, have fun. And it makes me laugh. I laugh at myself. And I think laughing at yourself is like really important. And, just having a fun time. And like I said, like if people, drive by me and they see me talking, I've got my earbuds in, they probably just think I'm talking on the phone, but really I'm singing and, and having a conversation with who knows, right?
Yeah.
And just having a fun time with it. But circling back to, just to make it a little tighter, is I do believe in speaking things out loud, your dreams and desires, and having affirmations and all of that. And it's just one way to do it. So it's also kind of a little tip for anyone out there.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So maybe one morning when you're out there, you should take your phone and do a Facebook Live as you're walking.
Okay, all right, I'll do it.
This is me in the morning. Make sure you tag me when you do it.
I was gonna say, you're gonna get tagged. That's awesome.
Oh, that's great. Oh, Melinda, this has been fun, and
yes,
great stuff. Great stuff. I think your book is going to be a big hit, and yeah, listeners, go get it. It's awesome. Yeah, it's definitely worth a read. Lots of great tips, lots of great information. So yeah, really happy to I'll be getting it as soon as you launch.
Thank you. You're so kind, and I just adore you, and I'm so glad that we've gotten to know each other. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah. It hasn't been long, has it? But
no, it hasn't. But right away I was like, oh my gosh. So yeah, leave it to Clubhouse. If anyone hasn't read my blog, that's how I met Dianna.
Yeah, that's right.
Laura's connections on Clubhouse. So
that's right. Cool. Yeah. Okay. So listeners, the book is called Confidence Master for Couples: Roadmap to a More Intimate Relationship. So as I said, go give it a read when it comes out, March 9th. We're just a few days away. I don't think you'll be disappointed. So thank you so much, everybody, for coming and having a listen and a watch today. I just want to acknowledge that just by showing up, you are actually kicking your own ass. So very, very happy that you're here, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks.
If you like today's podcast, hit subscribe at the bottom on your way out, and come find me at cravemorelife.com for even more DIY ass kicking.